I appreciate that. But my own thing with Deontay, that's a part of boxing, I guess. But
Yes.
here's a guy just we'll see how well his career is done now. So I'm done. He's done. I'm done with him.
What's good, ladies and gents? Welcome to the MKO Pugilism Boxing channel where we talk all things boxing. Remember to like, remember to subscribe, hit the bell notification, and you can get notified of all our latest activity, latest blogs and everything. Leave your thoughts below about the topics that we discuss in the video. So without further ado, let's get into it. So recently there's been a few headlines in the world of boxing. One of those big ones is Mark Breland has said quite a few things about Deontay Wilder. It's like he's more or less finally sort of given a full response to several of these allegations that were made against him, and this is stemming from the Fury versus Wilder rematch, the second fight in which Deontay Wilder was stopped. And Mark Breland was the one, of course, who threw in the towel. At the time, Deontay Wilder was very critical of Mark Breland for this, and he famously said that, "I've told my team, you never throw the towel in, you never do that. I want to go out on my shield. I'm a warrior, blah, blah, blah. I never throw the towel in. Let me get knocked out or whatever, but never throw the towel in." He was saying, as long as I've still got my footing, as long as I'm still on my feet, I can always throw that knockout punch. I've always got that right hand, So it was like Wilder's theory, or whatever he believes, was that as long as he was on his feet, even if he's getting battered, he never throw the towel in because he punches the hardest in history or whatever, and he's always got a chance with that right hand. But again, that's from a fighter's perspective, that's kind of understandable. That is very understandable, actually, because as a fighter, you're always going to believe in yourself. You're always going to believe you've got a chance. As long as you're on your feet, you have that self-belief. That's natural, and that's good for a fighter to have. But the trainer's job is to step in when you're kind of not going to be able to survive, when you're going to do yourself serious harm. It's a trainer's job, or when your opponent is battering you, and the trainer knows you, they're meant to know what you can take and what you can't take. And if a trainer sees you getting battered or whatever, and sees that you're really not gonna win this fight, and you're, as a fighter, you're always gonna have that pride, and you're always going to believe that, I can win this fight, don't stop it, blah, blah, blah. No fighter, every fighter's got this pride in them where they're never going to say, yeah, coach, throw the towel in. They normally want to continue no matter what. So that's what Wilder's going to say. But Mark Breland in the corner on that day, he done the right thing. He threw in the towel because he could see that his fighter I don't think he'd won a single round, and he wasn't winning the round that it was. All it was is just a case of Fury went in there, Fury knocked him down several times, and there was only going to be one winner of that fight. If they let him box on, he could have done serious damage to himself. He could have got brain damage. Who knows? There's so many examples of this. You just think of Michael Watson, you think of man like Gerald McClellan, blindness, and he had neurological damage, and they're still suffering till this day. There's several boxers like that who have had serious damage done to them. So as the coach, you have got that responsibility to kind of save the fighter. Mark Breland also responded on this interview by Tunde Ajayi, Dream It, Believe It, Become It, and Spencer Fearon on their podcast, The Fight Is Right, which is definitely a good one, interesting one to listen to and to watch. And so Breland, he made some interesting comments. He responded about spiking the water, because Deontay Wilder accused him of, Mark Breland spiked my water, he gave me a muscle relaxer and all this nonsense. And Mark Breland goes, look, everyone knows my character. Everyone knows I wouldn't have done that. And he goes that the water he didn't even touch the water all through the thing. He goes, somebody else touched the water. And of course, you know, JD's is the one that actually touched the water. So he said he had no involvement with that. And everyone knows his character is solid and it's not something he's done. He also went on to say that Deontay Wilder doesn't do jump rope, he doesn't do any skipping, doesn't do road work, he doesn't work the speed bag, and he pointed out these conventional training methods that Deontay Wilder doesn't do, and he said that Wilder's career is done now and that he's done with Wilder and all this sort of thing. And it's interesting, those things that he doesn't do. I mean, he doesn't have the best technique as a boxer, Deontay Wilder. So some of those things, I think he also said he doesn't hit the heavy bag. And I mean, it's one of those where that's not the whole reason why he's technically quite flawed, but you know, because there's examples in history. I think Chavez Jr., he didn't hit the pads until later in his career, and there's boxers who boxers don't always have to do things in a conventional way that we're used to with the bags and all this sort of stuff. And sometimes guys can use unconventional techniques and they may work for them, and you know that boxing can work like that. It doesn't mean because you use all the conventional methods that you're gonna be a great or whatever. I mean, guys like you know, Tony and people like that, and Eubank and that, some of these guys, their main thing was sparring, and then they neglected other things that might be you know, other boxers might prefer. Like they neglected sometimes the running, and some guys prefer to swim instead. And yeah, there's many ways to get along in boxing, but for Deontay Wilder, perhaps maybe those conventional things that boxers tend to do might have served him well. I don't know, but yeah. So Breland was clear on that, and it's a two-edged sword in a way, because you could say, well, if Breland is saying to that Wilder doesn't do this, doesn't do that, and he also said he doesn't listen, you could argue that, well, why did you stay with Wilder all these years if your voice is not being heard and if you're not being listened to? Why did you stay with Deontay Wilder for so long? What was the point of that? You know, if you're not being listened to and your opinion is not seen as valid in the team, then why on earth, why did you stay for so long? And in the case of Wilder, you could say, well, if you believe Mark Breland is a snake and he's this and he's that, well, why did you retain him for so long? And you waited until the first time you lost a fight to then fire him and then say all this stuff about him. So again, it's an interesting one. Breland definitely said his piece. He went on to say some very odd stuff, and I think he was pretty dismissive of Tyson Fury. Said Deontay Wilder could never beat Tyson Fury. He rubbished the rumors about Deontay Wilder saying that Tyson Fury had egg weights in his gloves, he had sand in it, he had no padding in the gloves, he had all this different stuff in his gloves. He said, well, at the end of the day, his coach was in there, JD was in there, and you know, JD's didn't see anything. So